Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have on the table something from PrimaryAms, a company that I've been getting a lot of stuff from, either from viewers such as yourself, Patreon supporters, subscribers, or in the case of this GLX2X Prism, the actual CEO of the company. Yes, that's right. He reached out to me in regards to sending me the brand new PLX Compact 1:8 first focal plane. They're still trying to work on getting their hands on one to send to me, but he's like, hey, in the meantime, do you want to review anything else? I said, hey, you know what? I'd appreciate whatever you want. So he sent me over this. And the reason why he sent me over this is because he believes that this is one of their best optics. In fact, it's one of his favorite optics that he goes to on his AR. So of course, I said, why the hell not? Especially considering I really like their SLX Micro Prism 1X. This has a perpetual home on my Ruger PC C in 9mm because it's just a fantastic optic that does everything I'm looking for out of it for a very reasonable price. These are around $270. Again, this is an SLX, so is their silver or bottom of the line. This being their GLX or their gold line, this is $100 more at $370-ish, but also comes in a wide variety of reticles as well. They have a reticle specific for 9mm, then one for 762 by 39 or 300 blackout, then 556, 308, and 545. They sort of like mash that into one. You just have to figure out what the drops are for your setup, and then you could use those drops at whatever distance that they call for. Anyway, with the success in my eyes of this SLX, I was very excited to see what the GLX has to offer, because typically the GLXs are made in the Philippines, whereas the SLXs are made in China and the PLXs are made in Japan. For the price, I really think this might have a really good spot that it secures in the market. Anyway, without further ado, checking out the box, you can see it is very nice, but we are greeted with this made in China. Typically, you know what, where is it? Can't really see it. Oh, this is a sneak peek, by the way. Most of their GLXs like this are made in the Philippines. This is made in China, so I wasn't expecting that much compared to that as far as the difference goes. But is there? Reticle on this is set up for 556. On the side, I know it's a little washed out, but that's some of the information we're going to need to know. Turret clicks are 1/4 MOA, which is nice. And there's all the rest of the information that might be suitable for you. Anyway, that is the box. It is very nice. Cracking this thing open, you will see they actually include Vibratite, which is very good stuff. We have the reticle manual and the scope manual themselves and instruction manuals. So you can pause this and read this all you like. They give you a really good rundown of what all the screws are, as well as their thread pitch and length in case you lose any of them, you can replace them. Very cool. And the reason for that is, just like the SLX, this GLX comes with different height spacers that you can change up on this. You could already see we have a medium-sized spacer in there. We have a taller one right here. And it looks like we have about another tall one. Actually, this is slightly different. Yeah, this one's more this size. Actually, it's a little bit bigger than that. So we have small, medium, and large. And of course, we could run this with no spacer at all, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing. And you have all the screws. Look at that. They even number the bags. So this way, there's no confusion about what goes where when you're swapping this around. And in fact, we will pull that apart because I'm curious to see how it's going to be set up. So, tons and tons of stuff for your money. Small Allen key to make adjustments on top. And we have our big Torx driver. I believe these are T25 or T27s for the cross bolts to actually secure it to your pick rail. Good stuff. So it includes everything you're going to possibly need to get this to wherever you're going to need height-wise. Going over the reticle manual first, there isn't a whole lot to really talk about. It's a chevron with a donut around it, and I kind of like the chevrons. They look really cool. The donut is, if it's anything like the SLX, is going to be the perfect size because I just think it is very handy. You do have a ranging setup on this one as well. So range 5'10", I guess that's an average height, foot to head, or range center mass 18 inches. So chest width basically, 4 different distances going out. On to the scope manual next. Read this first. Achieving a clear reticle picture. Ooh. You see this right here? Not many people understand this concept. They have this written out absolutely perfectly. Word for word, this is what you need to do to have your reticle set up for your eye perfectly. They even mention because everyone's eyes are different. Couldn't have said it better myself. Anyway, what do we have here with this GLX2X? Right off the bat, it's got a little bit more heft than the SLX. Because this new desk is nice and perfectly flat, I don't have to worry about putting this in the wrong position. Look at that. Even with the small spacer installed, it's still less than 11 ounces, 10.8. But the SLX is, of course, a couple of ounces lighter. So right off the bat, the smaller and lighter weight option, of course, is the SLX 1X, but that's a 1X versus a 2X. So it's a little bit more than just weight. As far as how we remove the bottom base, because I'm going to be setting this up low for my rifle anyway, we have one screw in the middle holding the actual claw, and then you can see we have two screws that hold the spacer onto the optic. We'll look at the bottom of the optic, and you can clearly see there are 3 stainless steel thread inserts in there, so when you torque this thing down, you don't have to worry about pulling the aluminum threads right out of the base of this thing. Same thing goes, actually, the front is canted. Same thing goes with the spacers themselves. You can see there's a thread insert in there. So again, when you start torquing this down, you don't have to worry about ripping the threads out. It's a much better system. So attention to detail like that is I'm very happy to see. With the base off of it, in case you wanted to buy, because it looks like this will mount up with a mini ACOG mount. If you wanted to put this on a QD mount, let's say, by itself naked, it's just under 9 ounces, 8.75 ounces. So if you wanted to get like an ADM or a Liveroo mount, you can factor out exactly what the weight is going to be for your setup. Other than that, though, this thing feels really nice in hand. The GLXs versus the SLXs, as you can see, have a couple of key differences as far as their overall setup. In fact, with this GLX 1:6 first focal plane, which you guys haven't seen yet, by the way, this has the exact same sort of rubberized texture and coating on a lot of its surfaces, except for the illumination control. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Starting at the back, we have a fast focus eyepiece that has very, very fine threads. I prefer finer threads because it allows you to get that perfect focal point all the way out. I'll go a half a turn in. This thing is rock solid. Maybe a touch of wiggle up and down, but side to side, very tight. Very smooth threads. You could hear the seals rubbing inside, but nothing inappropriate. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. They'll leave it all the way inside so I don't accidentally drop it and destroy it. The fit and finish on this thing so far is very nice. You can see there at the bottom, there's your serial number, model number, and of course made in China. Unfortunately, I would like to have seen this be made in the Philippines for the extra $100 for the cost, but you know what? You can't have everything. I did ask the CEO, hey, is there ever going to be a PLX version of these micro prisms, the 1X or this 2X? His simple answer was, it would cost way too much to produce, and it wouldn't be much better than how these perform. So I can respect that. What's the point of making something that's going to cost, let's say, probably twice the price of this? And twice the price of this would put that around $700, which would still be a couple $100 cheaper than what you'd find from Trigicon's 1.5 powered ACOG, for example. And would it really be beneficial if it's, let's say, 10, even 15% better on the glass clarity? Even for someone like myself, I don't know if it would really be worth it. Moving on to the illumination control, you can see we have a single off with 2 night vision modes and then 3 through 11 for its full brightness settings. And they claim it's daytime bright. From what I can see right now, it is very bright, but the detents on this leave a lot to be desired. It feels like it just sort of glides through all of the detents. You can see it stops a little and then it just pops right out. Doesn't really make a great sound, doesn't have a really good feel. Compare that to the SLX. The SLX actually has a much better action to it. It's actually a little bit too tight, but I prefer tight because that means it's not going to get accidentally bumped out of the brightness settings that you have it in. And once it's in there, yeah, there's a little bit of play, but it snaps into its next brightness setting. So the SLX has a little bit better feeling control. So removing the battery compartment is a little tricky because this is not very deep. It doesn't seem anywhere near as deep as some of the other ones that you could see that we've got on the table. On the SLX, the coin sits in there a lot better and it has a much better purchase. This, it's wider, yes, but it doesn't seem as deep. And as a result of that, you really got to be careful not to do exactly what I just did. This is very tight on there because the O-ring is very tight. And if I try using, here, my Swamp Fox one, you can already see it's marred up the corner over here because because it's soft plastic, it just pops right out. It's not anywhere near deep enough, this compartment. So got to use a coin because that's at least rigid enough. Trying to keep as much positive pressure down on here as possible. There we go. And we still marred it up. Under the compartment, you can see we have 2, 4, 6, 8 little fingers holding the battery in place. And the fingers themselves have a rubber O-ring on the outside that puts positive pressure on those fingers to keep it tight around the battery. So much so, you can't pull the battery out with your finger. 3 dimples on the inside. That's fine. More than fine, actually. I'm sure even without the battery compartment cover on, this Illumination will still work. Yes, it does. And I really wouldn't worry about this battery coming loose whatsoever. However, I do wish this was a little bit deeper, because as you can see, it's fairly shallow, and it's gonna get marred up no matter what tool you use. Big fat O-ring in the corner puts very positive pressure on the flat with the rest of the battery compartment, and that's great. But unfortunately, that contact also means that it's got a lot of pressure on there, and it gets really, really tight when you tighten this thing down. I'm not as worried about having the battery compartment cover come loose on this GLX as opposed to the SLX, which, as you can see, the SLX, I pointed this out in my review and in the unboxing, is the exact same size and shape as the dial itself. So if you grab it from the side, what would happen is you'd actually open the door if you didn't cinch this thing down really, really tight. As far as on this one, you can see it is not the same size. It's a little bit smaller than the actual Illumination control. So that is a plus right there. And it does fit a little bit more flush. But again, this thing, I wish this pocket was a little bit deeper. That's not even really a nitpick, because if this thing gets on there really tight, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to remove this. Anyway, on to our elevation and windage dials. So we know these are quarter MOA clicks because we saw that on the box. And you can see on top we have up with an arrow, and on the right we have right with an arrow. So perfect. We need nothing else. And the adjustments for this are built into the cap. If not, though, you could use a flathead screwdriver. I'm sure you could use a coin. Yep, even a big coin like this will fit. So this is the same size as a quarter. And let's give these things a whirl. Oh, that's fantastic. Very sharp and precise clicks. Great feel, great sound. Exactly what I want from turrets. Fantastic. Better than the Swiss watch. Perfect. They sound and feel perfect. You can see we have a very large O-ring down at the bottom, so it's very easy to see if it gets marked, cut, or even just isn't there. These caps have the proper relief on the bottom, so once you do tighten these up, you don't have to worry about that O-ring going anywhere. So beside the Illumination control itself feeling a little mushy and this coin slot for the battery compartment door being a little bit too shallow, this thing feels really, really nice in hand. But feeling nice and performing nice are two totally different things. So let's get behind this thing and see if it lives up to the hype. For anyone that isn't aware, I typically do 2 videos per optic. 1, the unboxing, which is what you're currently watching, and 2, which is the full review. This little segment at the end of the unboxing is just to give you a sneak peek of what to expect with the full review. This thing has a lot of questions that it needs to answer. One of them is the brightness to the Illumination, which you can very clearly see is more than daytime visible. If it had 1 extra brightness setting, I'd say it was absolutely full daytime bright. But given the size of the reticle and how bright it is very easy to pick up. And because the reticles are on the second focal plane in prisms, we can very clearly see the illumination and the reticle when we're deep into the shadows. So if you're getting behind this thing in an awkward position, it should help guide your eye to the center of this prism to look through it perfectly. Speaking about perfectly, the image. The image on this thing is basically perfect. Anywhere clearly here from 30 yards out to the power tower at 800 yards, everything is sharp, focus, and clear.
The colors look really good, and I haven't really noticed any chromatic aberration when behind this thing. The image through this thing also appears to be extremely flat. Going over the power lines, you might see a little bit of pulling at the very extreme, but even here on the shingles on the roof, it doesn't appear to have any sort of distortion to it, whether it be barrel distortion, pin cushion, fisheye. It all seems just extremely flat and clear. So what more could you really ask for from any optic? It's got clear glass, it's got a very sharp image, it's got very low distortion, it's got very good colors, contrast seems pretty good, and it's got no chromatic aberration. Tie that in with a good sized reticle and bright illumination, and it seems like we have a winner. And that's going to end this unboxing. A huge thank you to PrimaryAms for sending this in for review. I am flattered and humbled and very, very appreciative. And I hope you all are too. Thank you all very much for watching. And as always, see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe Stars subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you can still help by using my affiliate links in the description below, and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.